Now that the housekeeping is done, it is an honor to introduce Glenn Lynch, CEO and
Good
Abhinav,
morning, everyone.
CFO of Volatus Aerospace.
Thank you, Danielle, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. We'll kick off right away. My name's Glenn Lynch. I'm the CEO of Volatus. Please forgive my voice. Let me start with how to think about Volatus today. We're building an integrated aerospace and defense platform. That means we're combining drones, piloted aviation, manufacturing, software, and training into one operating model. The simplest way to think about the business is in three parts. First, defense and security. That includes ISR drones, counter UAS or counter drone capability through Skydra, NATO training, and sovereign manufacturing. Second, aerial intelligence services, which is our operating backbone. This includes inspection, mapping, and surveillance work for utilities, energy, and infrastructure. Third is our equipment, cargo, and training, which includes drone sales, cargo platforms, supporting infrastructure, and operating training. What really matters is that this is not a single product company. It's a platform with multiple revenue streams that all reinforce one another. In fiscal 2025, we delivered $34 million of revenue, which was a growth of 26% year over year. We maintained about a 32% gross margin and finished the year with just over $41 million in cash. We also saw our defense business grow to 25% of our revenue. That's important because it shows our business is naturally aligning with where Canada and our NATO partners are investing. That's autonomy, sovereign capability, and domestic industrial capacity. So this slide really sets the foundation. Volatus is evolving into an integrated Canadian aerospace and defense platform with operations that span Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom. So let's take a minute and I'll give you a quick update on what we actually got accomplished in 2025. On the defense side, this was really a year where we moved from proving we could enter the market to proving we could execute. We delivered multiple ISR systems. That's the defense drones that we're talking about to NATO customers. And importantly, we received repeat orders. In defense, repeat orders are what really tell you that the capability is working in real operations. We also secured a $9 million training contract with a NATO ally, thanks to Danielle and her team, and renewed our national master standing offer with the Government of Canada, which keeps us positioned across all.
Did you pause it for 1 second, Benny?
Man, I was just looking at that. I am really sorry. We need a whole nother setup in order to pause a live Zoom call. It's a
Okay, yeah, no problem. I was just going to say that the deck, I noticed, I think it's for their corporate update. I have the earnings call up with the transcript, but it's just not anything good to look at. So I'm going to keep this as our background just for added context.
From a technology standpoint,
okay. Yeah, we're still learning, folks. But next time we'll be ready with a Zoom presentation and be able to pause during it. But I just Googled it, and I've got to go through a whole process with a separate camera in order to do that.
Our Condor XR XL with programs. Our counter.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit after.
And began establishing our Mirabel manufacturing facility.
I'm interested in
From a
that.
capital market standpoint, we finished the year with the strongest balance sheet in our history, $41 million in cash. And shortly thereafter, we completed our graduation to the Toronto Stock Exchange main board. When you step back, these aren't isolated milestones. What they really show is a company building scale, building sovereign capability, and positioning itself to participate in the long-term defense industrial cycle that we now see emerging in Canada and among allied nations. This slide really shows one of the biggest shifts that's happening inside of Volatus. Just 2 years ago, defense was about 5% of our revenue. In 2025, it reached about 25%. If you think about it, that's a major change in our business, and we still believe that we're in the early stages of that growth. There are a few reasons for that. First, we now have real proof points. We have NATO contracts, repeat ISR orders, and growing training platforms, or growing, I guess I should say, programs. So this is no longer about where we think we can go. This is an operating defense business today. Second, the environment around us has changed. I think everybody's seeing that structural change. Canada's defense industrial strategy and NATO commitments are creating a long-term demand cycle and demand signal around autonomy, ISR, and sovereign manufacturing. These are exactly the areas where Volatus has been building capability. And our objective is extremely clear. We want to be recognized as one of the Canadian industrial champions in this sector, a company that can actually deliver capability, not just develop technology. So third, our model, as it is today, goes well beyond just selling aircraft. We deliver integrated capability. That's the ISR platforms, our long endurance systems, our heavy lift logistic drones, the Condor XL specifically, and our training and sustainment. That matters because sustainment creates long-term, reoccurring revenue relationships. Mirabel is an extremely important part and growing role in the Volatus story. We're building manufacturing capability in Canada, which positions us exactly where the defense industrial strategy is trying to build domestic strength. Trusted Canadian suppliers with export potential to NATO and allies. So the takeaway is really this. Defense is becoming a core growth engine for Volatus, and we believe we're positioning ourselves to participate meaningfully in Canada's push to rebuild its next generation of aerospace and defense industrial champions. This slide, before I pass it over to Abby, highlights an important evolution in our counter-drone strategy. With Skydra, we intentionally moved upstream. From just products and hardware, we're now focused on the policy, planning, and operational readiness level. That was really the original objective. The concept was to help shape how organizations think about counter-drone readiness, not just what equipment they buy. Skydra is our operational planning and simulation platform. It allows defense organizations, airports, and critical infrastructure operators to plan scenarios, train teams, and develop response frameworks before they ever deploy hardware. Strategically, this matters because defense is increasingly software-driven, and governments, including through the Defense Industrial Strategy, are putting more emphasis on preparedness, integration, and operational capability. From an investor standpoint, it also introduces three important things for us: recurring software revenue, stronger pull-through for our hardware programs, and access to a much larger counter-drone readiness market. So while Skydra is a new product, new in our commercialization, it's an extremely important first step. It shows we're not just building drones, we're building capability at the policy, planning, and operational level of counter-drone strategies. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Abby now, and he'll walk you through our 2025 financials.
Thank you, Ryan, and good morning, everyone. I will walk you through our fiscal year 2025 financial results, which represent the first full year following the merger with Drone Delivery Canada and Volatus in 2024. Starting with the top line, equipment and service revenue came in at $34.2 million, up 26% from $27 million in fiscal year 2024. The big driver was equipment sales, and that part of the business more than doubled, up 106%, largely tied to our defense sector enhancement. On the service side, revenue was down slightly, and it's really the timing of awards and execution, not the demand. We have already seen the normalization. There has been two major service contracts that were awarded due to start in 2025, but started in tail end of Q1 of 2026. On margins, gross profit increased $11 million and margins remained stable at 32% despite the higher mix of equipment and defense sales. On operating performance, this was the first full year post-merger, so we're seeing the impact of that. We invested heavily in people, up 45%. IT and integration costs were up 40%, and we restarted and restated R&D, particularly around development of defense technology. So yes, operating loss increased to $14.9 million, but that's more likely and very much planned investment. Importantly, these are front-loaded investments to support scale, especially in the development of defense technology in the given geopolitical situation we are in. At the EBITDA level, we are at about 7.2 million drain, but on pro forma basis, including the full year of Drone Delivery Canada, that's actually a 25% improvement. So overall, I would frame 2025 as a build year, strong revenue growth, deliberate investments, and a clear shift in where the business is heading. Next slide highlights the revenue growth, mix, and the geography of the business. We ended the year with 26% growth, and defense now makes up 25% of our total revenue, highest in the company history, and we haven't even scratched the surface. That's an important number because structurally, we are seeing a move towards 60 to 65% in defense revenue over time. Looking at the quarterly revenue, we can see the ramp up. Growth accelerated through year with Q2 and Q3 showcasing the strongest step up, particularly equipment deliveries and ramp up in defense. Q4 remained stable, indicating a baseline run rate normalization. On the mix side, equipment is now about 48% of revenue, up significantly from 29% last year. Services at 52%, still showcasing a meaningful pace, and that's intentional. Equipment gets us in the door, especially in the defense. Sustainment revenue, that's generally 60% of the defense contract, and it's driven by training, maintenance, and software solution, all being provided in-house by Volatus as we scale. Services is what drives recurring revenue and margin over time. Geographically, Canada did 19.3 million in revenue at 10% increase, showcasing a stable and foundational market. And this does not include any defense activities. With the launch of Defense Industrial Strategy in 2026, this will change the mix and the growth materially as we scale in 2026 and 2027. Europe and UK saw a revenue of $10 million, up 244%, primary growth engine being defense. And US was stable at 4.9 million with a 13% marginal drop, temporarily due to softened, which are factors beyond their control. Critically, entering 2026, we have established a 20 million of annual recurring revenue equivalent of revenue run rate, providing visibility and stability. So directionally, we are moving from more transactional project-based revenue to more predictable, contracted revenue stream and platform revenue as we scale in defense. That's a key shift for us. Moving on to balance sheet and liquidity. 2025 represent a step-up change in the financial strength. Oh, Danielle, previous slide. Okay. Turning to balance sheet, 2025 represent a step-up change in financial strength of the company. We ended up this year with total assets of 93 million, up from 58 million. Current assets of 48 million, up from 11 million, and cash of 41 million compared to just 2 million the prior year. This reflects a $39 million increase in cash, primarily driven by the financing activities aligned with our growth strategy and the confidence investors have showed in our ability to execute. From a cash standpoint, operating cash flow improved to about $7.5 million versus $12.4 million last year. Investing was about 1.7 million as we continued to build out capabilities in 2026. And financing was about 48.6 million, which enabled the significant shift. This positioned us for strongest balance sheet in company history, sufficient capital to support defense programs, manufacturing scale-up, especially the Mirabel facility, and global expansion. We have moved from a capital-constrained position to capital-enabled growth platform with liquidity aligned to our strategic roadmap. That brings us towards end of the organized presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Abby and Glenn. We have some questions coming in, and just a reminder before we get started, if you do have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So you shared defense is the fastest growing segment. Can you give us the breakdown of revenue from defense versus commercial and product and services versus equipment?
I can take that question, Danielle. So on the overall breakdown, we are not breaking down defense versus equipment, specifically on the commercial side, specifically to preserve the margin visibility because it's a competitive space. And the breakdown showcases the visibility in the margin from each segment, and it goes against the company. So that's the only reason it's not been disclosed. On the shift side, 48% of the revenue came from overall equipment that includes both commercial and defense, and 52% came from services contracts.
What is your cash position after paying the EDC loan, and how is your standing with EDC impacted by the covenant breach?
Sure. So $41 million cash year end is after repayment of the EDC, which is a scheduled repayment of EDC loan. The covenant breach did not impact anything with EDC, neither the relationship nor the timing of the payment. EDC payout is over the 4 years. The timing hasn't changed. We had the approval from the EDC already. We were aware of the breach, and they were comfortable as well. It was just mere formality and the accounting disclosures on the financial statements.
Could you provide a status update to Mirabel and timing of commercialization of that facility? Also, at a high level, how are government conversations going with respect to the defense industrial strategy and FLT's position within it?
I'll take that one, Danielle. So Mirabel is a core focus for us right now. Officially, we're hoping to launch the facility with some form of an opening early to mid-June. There's a lot of work being done in the facility right now. We're launching a total of 5 programs over the course of this year. Manufacturing will actually begin within the next few weeks on the first program, with some deliveries off of that program expected by probably early summer. I would say from a revenue standpoint, we don't expect the facility to be really contributing majorly to the revenue in the company before entering 2027. There will be some revenues in 26, but it's very early stage in the production, particularly as we complete the flight test articles and demonstration aircraft for the larger mail platforms. But hiring is ongoing. They're working very aggressively. Luc Massé has transitioned to a full-time role right now, leading that initiative. So we're ramping up as quickly as we possibly can. In terms of conversations with the government, we're working very aggressively. We're attending pretty much every defense-related conference right now across the country. We're involved actively with the Canadian Army and some of their strategic planning. We're involved in their Minerva initiative. We're involved in ideas challenges right now, which are some of the programs that are competitive programs that have been opened up by the government. And to be honest with you, I think what's really important is for people to understand that the defense industrial strategy, while it was several months delayed, I think we were expecting it to kick in a little earlier this year. The reality is, as with most things, it was worth the wait. So it did appear, but it's fairly newly minted as they stand up the Defense Investment Agency and work through some of the legislative issues that allow the DIA to be able to execute with lower floors on their ceilings, expediting the procurement process. But much of what we expect to see in 2026 is government investment in the industrial infrastructure of the country. So while there's an $80 billion demand signal, the reality is that demand signal could not be likely deployed across all of Canada right now because our defense infrastructure just simply isn't there. Over the history of Canada, most of the defense spending that was occurring, about 75 cents of every dollar, 70 to 75 cents, was actually leaving Canada. So right now, the defense industrial strategy has created, first of all, a dedicated investment into the Canadian defense industry. That's really the most important number to watch this year is the $6.6 billion, which will show up in the form of non-dilutive financing and early programs within the government. If you think about it, because of where we are, it's not likely that the government would turn around and buy $100 million of drones from a Canadian manufacturer, first of all, because the drones haven't been produced in Canada until very recently. You know, when I say that, I mean at a large operating scale. And because the military will go through a procurement, typically of a smaller number. They go through the procurement and testing cycle, and then they start entering into program-type revenues, which I would expect more to start happening in 2027. But that's not to say we won't see revenues this year, but I think a lot of the things that you'll see is the deployment of capital investing in the defense industrial strategy, or excuse me, in the defense industrial base, which will allow us to repatriate much of the defense spending that's leaving Canada right now. And a key point I want to make, particularly for people that are looking at what the strategy really means. The way Volatus sees it is the defense industrial strategy is not really a trade protectionist type mechanism. What it really is a reinvestment and future investment in Canadians in the Canadian defense industry. And by strengthening our defense industry, it's really makes Canada a stronger partner for the United States and for allied nations around the world. It allows us to contribute in a more meaningful way, particularly in areas like Arctic, but just overall. It opens the door to collaboration, cooperative relationships, joint venture, co-development of technology. So I think that's probably the most important thing that we should look at. So I know that's a long-winded answer to a relatively short question, but suffice it to say that we are doing our absolute best to remain engaged and increasing our profile within the Canadian government and the defense and the Canadian Armed Forces.
Love to hear that.
Well, but then to go back to Mirabel, what will Mirabel look like at a full run rate?
Abby, do you want to take that one?
Sure, absolutely. I can take that one. So the 53,000 square feet, it's a perimeter secure at full run rate and full scale. Initially, when we launched it, the plan was one technology that has been expanded to 4 different technologies now, including the Borealis project. So at full scale, that the capacity of that facility is $250 million.
Okay. And when do we hear more about Borealis?
Uh, we we made it to phase 1. So we got down selected from 200 companies to 25. We have already made submission to phase 2 as well. I believe by end of Q2 or by mid of Q2, we are expecting the results of phase 2 to come out. That will lead to 12 companies in phase 3. Phase 3 is field testing and demos with the armed forces on the field. And the proposed plan is by end of the year, the government has 1 year. So I would say till end of April next year to complete phase 3. But we are seeing the much faster movement. So we can expect at the end of the year that should conclude.
With the new margin profile forming, what would be a reasonable revenue ballpark for the company to reach break even?
So with $60 million annualized revenue is breaking even. It could be a little faster as well, because we need to remember one thing. We have ramped up the R&D, but once the technology is out, the R&D also goes down, right? Because now it's on the maintenance of the technology rather than significant investment. The defense software technologies the team is working on, that's a big investment that's going in parallel to the platform, which is hardening the platforms for the Arctic. And once these are ready, the R&D goes down, and basically that also improves the margin profile as we keep scaling.
Can you refresh us on your M&A strategy and what are your key areas of focus to fill out your product suite?
Absolutely. So our strategy is still anchored on central thesis of vertical integration, Canadian controlled aerospace and platform. We are looking in both commercial and the defense segment at the same time. On the defense, it's always proprietary technology and IP, something that's proven and works in the operational field. And of course, it's going to be proven technology and inbound with existing contracts with the different NATO and NATO partners. On the commercial side, it's operational consolidation that we keep doing it. And specifically on the energy side, in US, Canada, we're not just looking for adding on revenue, because our intent is integrating the platform and immediately realizing the synergy. It's one company, one direction. That's the intent. It's not a vertical structure. So we look for synergies, we look for integration, and it's broad-based technology, contracts, customer base, geography, and people.
Would the domestic battery partnership that you announced in the MD&A solve the supply chain issue rising from the Middle East situation that's going on right now?
I'll take that, Abby. So supply chain is a major discussion for us right now, because back to the defense industrial strategy, if we attempted to spend all that money in Canada, the supply chain is somewhat limited for that. Um, Very much similar to the United States. There's been, I would say, an over-reliance on international markets for supplying a lot of the supply chain. And of course, the instability, the geopolitical instability that's existing has certainly rattled supply chains. There's no question about that. So I believe that one of the strongest motivators for companies like Volatus to establish these partnerships like this one, like, for example, the one that we announced a few days ago with Sentinel R&D, is all about strengthening the domestic supply chain within Canada to create a sovereign IP and a dependable supply chain as we kind of build together. So most definitely, I believe that the partnership with Volta Explorer will have real value for us in the months and years ahead. The other key advantage is, remember, Canada has a unique operating environment. I keep bringing it back to the Arctic. It's an area that Canada has some real understanding as well as real demand, a real opportunity for us to contribute around Arctic security to our NATO partners. And companies like Volta Explorer have the ability to work with us on batteries that are more functional in those cold weather type operations. So most definitely, I would say that's a mitigating factor, not just against the instability in the Middle East, but in terms of reinforcing the industrial base in Canada.
So, talking about that supply chain, what percentage of the drone supply chain is currently from Canada, and what do you imagine that looking like in 1 to 2 years?
Major focus for Volatus, right? We're our first focus. We're trying to align our strategy very much with the build partner buy strategy that exists in the defense industrial strategy. That was the government's signaling, but it's also a practical business strategy. The simple reality is we can't buy everything from Canada. It doesn't exist here yet. And I don't think that any nation can or should build everything. That said, we want to buy as much as we possibly can from Canada. And where we're not buying from Canada, we either partner with our allied companies from allied nations. And if we can't do that, then ultimately we default to a buy situation. So the procurement system in Canada and the procurement system of Volatus is very similar on the supply chain. If we buy it, and if we can buy it in Canada, we will. If we can't buy it in Canada, we work with allied suppliers to ultimately see if we can relocate or license technologies and whatnot to be built in Canada. And where that doesn't work, we simply buy from trusted partners, of which we have many in across the allied nations.
And can you provide a more detailed information on the MOU with Sentinel R&D? And is this
0 hour
in
question.
the way of kinetic strike capability? How does Sentinel's manufacturing expertise fit or synergize with the Mirabel facility?
I submitted this.
So Sentinel is a very interesting company. Kath, their CEO, I had a good opportunity to understand the vision that's driving that company. Very, very talented new business in Canada. Two things were really interesting with our partnership with them. First of all, they've got some unique capabilities and some kind of, I would say, unique manufacturing processes on the composite side, which ultimately are things that can benefit Volatus and some of our other programs. You know, everything in Volatus is all about, do we build it ourselves or do we buy it from somewhere else, which is ultimately a time and cost, speed and cost issue that we evaluate, you know, as a normal course of business. So definitely the composite side is one. The second thing is we were actually in the process of looking to develop our own counter UAS and strike capable platform to meet really the demands of the Canadian armed forces and the demand signals we're seeing out of programs like Minerva, for example. And what we realized is this was a company that had developed a very, very interesting platform that was mature. I actually had the opportunity to go and view it in operation. What they didn't have was strong integration and autonomy on their own, where, of course, autonomy is a major focus for Volatus. So by partnering with Sentinel, that gave Sentinel an opportunity to add significant horsepower both on the commercialization side, but also on the manufacturing and integration side. So they produce the airframes, Volatus integrates the technologies, does the final assembly and testing of the aircraft in our facility in Quebec, which allowed us to introduce that platform to the market very, very quickly, and ultimately use the combined strengths of the company, the tremendous performance of their Recom platform with the evolving capabilities of our autonomy stack. So we expect that to be certainly it's an exciting partnership. I think it'll grow over time. And, it's an example of the kind of innovation that's already happening right here in Canada. And our goal is not just to develop it on our own, but to become a valued partner across the supply chain in Canada as well.
Great question, Benny.
Can we speak to the share price and the general stock market at this time? And when do we intend to start to see growth for Volatus for our investors?
He's going to be able to answer that. How is he going to know what my question?
That's what everyone wants to know.
Yeah, who's asking that?
The share price, unfortunately, like 21% of the company is owned by the management. We haven't sold a single share in the last 7 years, despite the run. So, and we believe we believe in the story. We believe where the company is headed, and we still believe that's cheap. I would say on the stock price, so we have 5 different analysts covering us. Most of them on the call here. Rockoff, John Luca,
The 0 Hour Group.
McDonald, Austin, Benoit. I would suggest, reaching out to them directly or reading to their research report. They all have done a fantastic job. So I think that will give much deeper understanding of the company and where the stock is headed.
Yeah. And we talk a little bit more about Skydra. Are we looking at paying customers yet, or are we still in the demo evaluation phase, looking with prospects?
So very much the product is just recently launched. So in terms of long-term contracts, it's not there yet, but the sales pipeline is building and the product is being demonstrated actively to interested parties.
Can you discuss the significance of becoming a Canadian champion or getting that designation for us and for anyone who's going after that position?
So interestingly enough, the designation, striving to become recognized as a Canadian industrial champion, it's one of those things that if you are not named a champion, the entire exercise of going through the process is nothing but good, right? We elevate our visibility with key stakeholders in the government and defense industry. But basically, it's a preferential treatment is what they're expecting. So it's where the government will ultimately lean on a preferred basis, some kind of pre-approved suppliers that they've developed a relationship with. We understand that there's some guidance coming out on the defense industrial or the Canadian champions in the not near or not too distant future. I don't think it would be responsible for us to comment too much until that document comes out.
With the tariff headwinds in the U.S. and the Made in America sentiment, are you de-emphasizing the U.S. market in the near future, or how are you going after that market?
So Volatus we have an office in Syracuse, New York. We've just recently opened. When I say recently, I think it's within the last few weeks, we've operationalized a new aviation hub out of Tulsa, Oklahoma area. So no, we have not de-emphasized the U.S. market. The reality is a lot of the regulatory changes with the FCC restrictions that came in January were a little bit of a surprise to the entire industry. And what we faced in the United States, as well as what we faced here in Canada, is an underdeveloped supply chain. Now, there's some extraordinary companies that are out there and moving very quickly to fill that void. I use an example of UMAC Unusual Machines. They're a company that's focused on developing the component supply chain in Canada. So those things are moving quickly, but as that supply chain it does compromise the speed with which our equipment sales business, for example, is capable of moving. So, well, I won't say de-emphasized. I would say we've recognized the dynamics and we're adapting to the market conditioning. So a lot of our sales team, we continue to expand our sales team, but we also expand the breadth of what they're selling so that they're involved in our services business as well as our defense business and our commercial activities as well. The United States is, I mean, borders, our shared border is never going to allow that relationship to be permanently damaged, in my personal opinion. And notwithstanding stresses that exist right now, the simple reality is these circumstances we believe will pass. And in the meantime, what we need to do is focus on making Canada a stronger partner. And that's I think that's the way the company ultimately, or the way Volatus is approaching it at the moment.
Can you provide an update on the Dufour relationship?
Yeah, that's an exciting one. So Dufour has two primary platforms right now. They have the Aero 30, which is a 30 kilogram drone, I believe. Don't quote me on that because I may be off on the weight a little bit, but they're identical platforms other than their scale. That's actively being flown now at our test site in Ontario. We'll be demonstrating, or at least showcasing, the Dufour platform at the up-and-coming CANSEC event in Ottawa, the Canadian Defence event. So it's moving along. I would say the Aero 200, which is really the large-scale commercial aircraft, that'll be ready to start entering service in 2000 and early 2027, possibly Q4 of this year. But I would say our relationship with Dufour is continuing to evolve. Our teams are now integrated. We're not just an operator of the technology, but we're an active feedback loop, combining our engineering feedback with theirs to make sure that the product evolves. We're quite excited to start showcasing that with our own offering. And ultimately, that's another relationship that opens the door to continued manufacturing in Canada, because ultimately, Dufour is developing their technologies. They're doing a brilliant job, but they're not built for scaled manufacturing, where, of course, we are in Mirabel.
And to move that over to the side there, how does Montreal rank as an aerospace aviation hub? And what does that mean for your supply chain planning?
So, we oftentimes talk about the underdeveloped supply chain, and that's very true when we're talking about our space in remotely piloted aircraft systems, which is really kind of a nascent, or an industry rocketing out of the nascent phase for all kinds of reasons that everybody else is reading in the newspaper. But Montreal is one of the top 3 aerospace clusters in the world, which is one of the primary reasons that we developed the manufacturing facility there. Basically, we have Seattle, Toulouse, and Montreal. One of the only cities in the world where they build pretty much every part of an airplane, not necessarily every part of the same airplane, but every part of an airplane. So, fairly robust supply chain, a lot of knowledge base in the area, and that's the primary reason we're there. And there's a bit of a trade-off. You know, Montreal's built for programs like Bombardier and Airbus, which means large scale, multi year programs. So, oftentimes in the early stages of the type of programs that we're doing, there's smaller scale manufacturing, which, sometimes that's not ideal tapping into the supply chain in the region. But as we scale, it'll become increasingly important.
So please update us on the unusual machines that you mentioned just a little bit ago, and your engagement.
There we go.
So again, until we're moved into kind of a larger scale manufacturing and we understand the outcome of some of the current trade negotiations that are going on between Canada and the United States, it's really tough for us to comment on that. As you probably detected by the tone of my comments earlier, I'm quite fond of Alan and his team at UMAC. And certainly we see a future working forward with them, whether that's in our Canadian manufacturing or ultimately, we continuously keep the door open to manufacturing in other markets, including the United States. But it's a bit early right now to determine what that'll look like on a commercial basis long term, other than to say the relationship is extremely important to us.
Can you describe to everyone here what are the major challenges to producing drones for Arctic surveillance and how your hardware and software strategy addresses them?
Batteries,
Well,
cold.
that's a great question. The Arctic is something, most Canadians understand cold, but they don't understand, if we're living in places like Toronto, Montreal, even Calgary and Edmonton, where they're a little closer to the nature of what we're discussing. Unless you're living in one of the northern communities in Canada, understanding the true elements that we have to deal with, the environment that we deal with. And we're not just talking, it's easy to understand extreme cold, temperature cycles, but we have other things up there, right? If you scooped up all of the wonderful Canadians that live in the north and you drop them into a city like Kingston, you'd still have a high vacancy rate. So population is highly scattered across the north in small communities. Um, Supported at the moment only by the Canadian Rangers, which are kind of untold heroes, in my opinion, in Canada. But basically, the Arctic, we have other considerations. We have very limited terrestrial communication, meaning communities are thousands of miles apart or thousands of kilometers apart in some cases. So there's no cell phone towers, running down the highway because there's no highway. We have limited number of satellites because the limited number of people that live there, so that creates some limitations. It's a an environment where, if you think about it, in kind of most of the area that all of us on this call would live in, the risk of losing command and control link between an operator and a pilot is a remote possibility. That's something we prepare for from a safety standpoint. The way we look at the Arctic, other than just the environmental things that everybody can think about, right? Extreme cold, weather, and so on. The other issue up there is the loss of communication has to be treated as a potentially daily probability. This means that to operate in the Arctic, not only do we have to adapt the airframe for the cold temperatures and the icing conditions and various things that can live up there, we also have to make sure that the autonomous capability of the platform allows, and autonomy split it in two. There's the autonomy that operates the aircraft itself, and then there's the mission autonomy that says, why am I here and what am I supposed to be doing? So the platform has to be able to function in an environment where command and control is lost. It has a job to do, and the recovery could be far away. Funny enough, the regulatory environment, because of the Arctic, allows us to do a lot more than we can do in southern airspace. But still, it's a extremely challenging environment that I feel like there's only a very small handful of countries in the world that understand it. Canada is one of them.
Very key.
So we've hit some of the questions. I just want to thank the people who make comments supporting Volatus throughout the Q&A. I'd like to finish this up with the final thoughts. What do you want our investors to leave this presentation with? And Abby's smiling because I always throw him under the bus, but he does such a good job. Glenn, do you want to start us off?
Oh no, I think Abby should start this one.
Okay, go for it, Abby.
So if you look at 2025, we had a transformational year for the company, right? First year after the merger with the Drone Delivery Canada, integrating the team, we grew the revenue by 26%, improved the pro forma EBITDA profile by 25%. I think the most important thing was improving the balance sheet and enabling the balance sheet to capture larger defense contracts. I think that was a step change that happened for us. But I'm actually more excited about what isn't in the rearview mirror, but where exactly we are headed. And where we are headed right now is we have 20 million of ARR. Our defense business has grown to 25% already. We have a clear line of sight. In the near future, it will be almost 60 to 65% of the business.
Wow.
Manufacturing, sovereign platforms, admirable. Europe is growing, and we're just getting started in Canada in the defense side, right? With the defense industrial strategy, and we have capital to execute. Volatus will not be, I would say, just a hardware company as we are growing, and the way we are growing with the restated R&D capabilities, deliberate focus on the defense stack technology, both in hardware and the software capabilities. I think that's going to be a game changer for us. That's where the margin expansion lives. That's where the recurring revenue model lives. And the thesis becomes very simple. Build for Canada, Canadian Aerospace and Defense platform. And these are the things where exactly what defense organizations are actually wanting. So we are aligning the company with the defense signals, with the demand or the pull demand we are seeing in the defense organizations, and building a full stack platform that makes us very sticky with defense customers in long term.
Fun. Final word.
So I would say a couple of things. First of all, as much as we're talking defense, understand that our team is working on protecting critical infrastructure like pipelines and power lines on a daily basis.
Dual use.
And that continues to be a huge focus. I think Abby said it pretty well on the company. I just want to take a minute and talk about the environment. This is a transformational moment for the Canadian defense industry. And in fact, for the defense industry globally, for that matter, as the increase in spending that we're seeing across NATO, just as an example, is unprecedented right now.
Yeah.
And I think that,
It's what I'm betting on.
Canada, it's
US too, mainly.
time. I mean, we talk an awful lot about Canada. And one thing I want to acknowledge the fact is Volatus is global in nature. We've got staff across the United States, UK, Norway, Latin America. And those people, I don't ever want to underestimate the efforts and the contributions they're making to Volatus. But the reality is we're in a very unique position in Canada because of our proximity to the United States, because of the impact of some of the global trade reset that's happening, the environmental changes, which have some really healthy spin-offs as well. Regardless of people's political views, the simple reality is a strong Canada is a stronger world. And Volatus is uniquely positioned, I would say, in the RPAS world to be able to take advantage of this changing environment. But also, I would encourage everybody listening to this call to really take a look at the Canadian defense sector. For the first time in our history, we have an industrial strategy, which is long-term demand signal. It's fully funded under the budget in Canada. The priorities have been identified. The government pillar priorities have been very, very clearly articulated, and a desire to build in Canada, repatriating a lot of that investment to develop the Canadian defense infrastructure. This is transformational for our country. Strong demand signals, well-funded, reduces risk. Reduce risk, give the opportunity for markets to reevaluate companies. It reduces the cost of capital, which allows companies to accelerate their execution. This is an extremely exciting time for Canada. I encourage everybody to do what they can to support, regardless of which side of the fence or what color ties people wear. It's important as Canadians right now that we succeed in this initiative with the Defense Industrial Strategy, and we all have to get behind making that happen, because there's nothing but good things that come from Canada with a strong and sovereign defense capability. So with that, I think I'll wind it up by saying thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for your continued support of Volatus Aerospace, and it's time for us to get back to work.
Excellent. And this recording will be made available definitely less than 24 hours. Take thank you, everybody.
See ya. Hey, we'll have a recording quicker than that, won't we?
Oh yeah. I mean, pretty much right after less. That last part gave me some chills. It's exciting because with Canada scaling up their defense, there's not as many companies competing on a sovereign basis, there as compared to like the United States.
Right.
And Volatus has some pretty good technology, and the budget is there, and the demand for Canadian domestically made stuff is there. So, I mean, that's exciting for this company, especially with having a couple niches with the cold weather stuff and a few other things that they're developing. It's pretty exciting.
You're exactly right. With the Arctic is becoming more and more accessible with the climate change, and the ice packs melting and that kind of thing. And there's a race to control the Arctic, militarily speaking, just to lay it out flat. In fact, I mentioned before in a different context with speaking of Ukraine, and their pioneering use of drones in the actual warfare and fighting, they've managed to start changing, in my view, the entire global balance of power. That Operation Spiderweb, where they destroyed strategic bombers deep inside Russia here last summer, was sort of the first crack at that. That it really showed that capability. But specific to the Arctic, the Russian Federation was in the process of building 5 armed icebreakers. These are icebreakers with guns on them. You know, there's only one place to take an icebreaker, and that is in the Arctic. You know, you're not going to use it down in Antarctica. All you can do is sail around a big ice sheet down there. But you're going to actually break up ice if you're moving around in the Arctic, given whatever time of year. Well, to bring myself to the point here, Ukraine used a drone, not the typical drone, but I should say an autonomous aircraft, to literally drop a bomb onto the first of those 5 armed icebreakers that Russia had just finished. It was not quite um, ready to be sailed out, but it was finished and floating at a dock. They dropped a bomb on it and flew the plane back to Ukraine. And right now, that icebreaker has been listing in port, half submerged, for months now. And Russia, they got their hands full. They haven't even bothered to take it out of the water yet for repairs. So there's a race for the Arctic. It's been going on for a couple of decades now. It's only speeding up with all of this autonomous use of drones and surveillance and presence. So everything that Glenn talked about there at the end was mainly the reason that Volatus caught my attention. Is that defense industrial strategy? It's funded at $84 billion. This is approximately 4 times Canada's yearly defense budget, and it's just designed around establishing a domestic supply chain, a domestic infrastructure, industrial infrastructure, for defense throughout the rest of the 21st and into the 22nd century. So I don't know. I'm even more excited
for this team. It's 4 times the normal funding. There's really no sovereign defense infrastructure built right now. And then this company is only 400 million or something market cap. Right. And they just need to, I mean, that's like 0.5% or something. They need to cover that entire budget to get more than their entire market cap.
Exactly.
Just to break that down for people. So that's absolutely insane. And they're showing up to all these events. It's funny too, because he was mentioning component infrastructure there. They're going to work with Unusual Machines, which is an American company potentially, for domestic parts. So that's not even there. So it's kind of a new frontier, and they have a big potential to actually go in and take some of that budget. And they really don't need much. They need half a percent of that entire budget, less than that, to get it as a very substantial piece of the pie. So that's extremely interesting to me. And then the fact that they said that the revenue was 30% or something right now for defense, and now it's moving, I think they said 2026 to 60%, is crazy. That means there's a lot of interest for that, and they're kind of pivoting because that's probably where more of the money is. With infrastructure also being very important. It's everyone watching right now. If you could just hit that little heart next to the chat, that helps us out a lot just with our engagement. So if you're watching, you enjoy this, hit that, please. Thank you.
And I appreciate everyone joining us too. It's very, very much appreciated. We're still evolving this platform that we've got launched here at Hidden Gems and 0 Hour. So I got thrown a little bit of a curveball this morning when we live streamed and covered the Ondas call last week. We were able to pause and discuss some of the items that had come up during the call, but it was a different call platform. This was held via Zoom, and Zoom itself doesn't allow you to pause a live call in the middle. But there are workarounds on that I'll get on as soon as we finish this, and I'll be ready for the next earnings call that we cover on a live stream and be able to sort of pause it. I know you caught it there, but we were able to get a 0 hour in question.
That was awesome.
Memorandum of understanding with Sentinel. You know, I wanted to shoot in another question when he was talking about the autonomous communications, the sort of dual track with how that would work. You know, being able to control an aircraft or know about it and communicate with it in the Arctic, but also the autonomy of that aircraft knowing where it was and what it was there to do. Um, and the first thing that popped in my head was worldview. You
Yep.
know, yeah. You just need an agreement with Worldview. Now a wholly owned subsidiary. That news came in, by the way, during that call on for Ondas. They completed that acquisition. But yeah, that would just be a perfect. And you know, Volatus and Ondas already have a close relationship. And in fact, on another call, Glenn Lynch there mentioned that he speaks with Eric on a regular basis, you know, by phone. But anyway, that just seems to me like a perfect synergy for, you know, an allied companies that are already, you know, well connected and some synergies there to provide that. Of course, he
There's a
may
lot
have
of
responded.
similarities too.
What's that?
There's just a lot of similarities
Yeah.
between Ondas and Volatus. Obviously,
Yep.
Volatus is a much younger in its journey here compared to Ondas. I mean, Ondas has gone crazy in the last year in terms of acquisitions and just the change of scope of their business. It's been very exciting. But Volatus reminds me of an early version of Ondas when they just had a couple
There you go.
platforms and there was a market to capture, and they're working on a few things. I find it interesting that Volatus is actually working on like the manufacturing infrastructure for Canada, which might give them actually an edge, and is something that Ondas doesn't have, where they're more system of systems with like outside third party manufacturers, which is fine. But Volatus is going for that manufacturing niche as well, which does not exist in Canada, which is pretty exciting. So the fact that this is about what 45 cent stock, obviously it's unprofitable right now, but so is Ondas and a lot of those other drone stocks. I think it's a really nice price point to get in based on what we're going to see from spending. So I'm really looking, for that 40-45 cent mark. We'll see if we get that, but with the general, macro and geopolitics situations going on, you just don't know what's going to happen. I thought it was funny as well. Someone on the call was like, "Hey, what's going to happen with the stock price? What's going to happen with all the geopolitical risk?" It's like,
I don't blame
everyone wants to know that.
Yeah, I don't blame them. That's what's on everybody's mind. I hope it's on his mind. You know, we want it on their
Yeah.
minds as well, right? Yeah, that's a fundamental pursuit there of that you want your executives doing. But I'll tell you, I'll touch on something that just came to mind there, and then I'd like to get to AIM Usurper's question there about Maribel.
Yeah.
But I'm impressed, and they actually tie together. Um, you don't want we're not traders. We're trying to find, gems to invest in, ones that are going to give us some outsized growth, especially ones we can get in ahead of the
At
big
the 0
boys.
hour. You got to get in there
Institutional.
first. At the 0
Right.
hour.
Exactly. And I think that Volatus, I'm very excited, sort of fits this bill. Um, AIM Usurper just asked a question in the chat there about that Mirabel facility, and then brought up a fantastic point about how management hasn't sold any shares for over the last 7 years. That sort of gives you an idea of where they're coming from. The pessimist AIM might say, "Yeah, well, it's tough to sell shares at 13 cents." The low about a year ago. But your point's well taken. I think that Mirabel facility is a key linchpin, and that's why I asked the question about how it might fit synergistically with the memorandum or that partnership they have. He actually used the word partnership when he was speaking about Sentinel R&D. And that's another Canadian company. They've got a loitering ISR platform that also can become or be at the same time. It can return if it doesn't find a target or see a need for expending itself, but it also is a kinetic solution, which for the most part, up until that, Volatus appeared to me was mainly focused around the intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities, heavy lift delivery type stuff.
Which is key in that environment, though, in that Canadian environment, that kind of reconnaissance, yeah, heavy lift. I mean, that can be used for so many different things, search and rescue, cold weather infrastructure. I mean, there's so many use cases there specifically. So with that just upgrade and spending, though that's mainly defense, I mean, there's going to be tie-ins with like infrastructure and yeah, reconnaissance and things. So very
Hey,
exciting.
and hey, militaries, I think it was Napoleon. He said, military marches on its stomach. You got to supply, and so there, that heavy lift comes in. It's more than just about dropping ordnance. It's about bringing supplies, bringing more drones to the front, bringing everything that they need. Or as we talked about with Eric Brock of Ondas, that idea of a mothership or a larger drone, extending the range of smaller drones by getting
Yep.
them, taking them because of that battery bottleneck being the limiter on how far they can operate. But just to finish up that Mirabel point, the
Yeah, I mean, it's
Mirabel,
just like in planes,
what's that?
supply jet.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're kind of there, Benny.
Am I cutting out? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, your video just paused there.
Okay, sorry.
Let's
Uh,
see. Yeah, okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, but that Mirabel facility is it's an investment in the future for a long-term deal.
Oh,
And not only and in terms of that defense industrial
oh,
strategy.
you're cutting out again.
Oh man.
We just need
Ah, any
there
better?
when the camera got turned. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to check a couple of things real quick in the settings, but hopefully it's working a little better now.
Um,
No? Can you still hear me?
weird. Yeah, become laggy.
Oh,
Try turning off the camera. Uh,
okay.
it might be like a bandwidth thing if you're streaming on your phone or memory thing.
All right. All right. So got that turned off. Um,
Well, that's fixing aim. Yeah, no, I mean,
okay.
that's the goal. That's the goal. We're doing some upskilling of some of our platforms with the 0 Hour group in terms of our website and things. We have a section for inquiry on,
Look at there.
we're going out right now because we're still growing and soliciting these interviews. So
Look, we
we're
got
soliciting
Narf
interviews with everyone
Narf
we kind
from
of cover that I
Germany.
cover on my stuff. And then also ones that 0. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's on my end. You're cutting off for me. I just heard you say Narf from Germany, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. What's up, Narf? Yeah.
Let's see.
All right. Yeah. Um. So am I coming in any better now?
They're saying there's no issues, so it might be
Okay.
on my end. So,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
just I guess it's on my end possibly.
Well,
Go ahead. Yeah.
so I'm sorry, but hey, listen, I just saw someone had a request to get Glenn on for an interview, and that request has already been submitted. And in fact, I heard back from the CFO actually during the call. Because I just dropped a reminder that I'd put in a couple of requests to get Glenn on 0 Hour group for an interview as when or if he was ever available. And so I got a positive response back. So yeah, guys, y'all can count on that. I just got confirmation actually during the call in a private message that we will be making that happen. So hey, it looks like, can you hear me now? Yeah, the problems might be on.
It might be this laptop because it's just cutting in and out. I can't even hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like everyone could hear what I was just talking about. I just confirmed that I got a private message during during that earnings call, that they will be reaching out to the 0 Hour group for to schedule an interview with us. So yeah, we're gonna make that happen. So we might want to go ahead and cut it off if you're having some difficulties there, JT.
Yeah, sorry. On my end, for some reason, it's just you're cutting in pretty much every second for me, so I wasn't able to really hear what you were saying. But it's 'cause I think it's an issue on my end, probably from the stream lasting like an hour and the laptop not having much RAM. Um, so I, about the last 2 minutes, I haven't even been able to hear. So,
Oh, hey, that's a bummer. If you can hear now, we're gonna get that interview. The CFO reached out to me and directly during the earnings call, and gave me a thumbs up that we would be hearing from them. So we got the interview. It's just a matter of getting it scheduled.
I heard that loud and clear. Okay, let's
Yeah,
go.
all right. Good deal.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll keep everybody posted on that. Unless there's any other questions from the group that maybe we want to go ahead and cut it here and get ready for the market open.
Yeah, I'd say just one thing before we go.
Yep.
I thought it'd be kind of cool to show this on stream quick. So if you guys have, if there's any CFOs or CEOs on, or you guys know anyone that you want us to interview, you can actually go over to our new website, which we are still developing, but we did get some upgrades in, which is really exciting. I thought we'd maybe show you guys quick now. So you can go check it out at the zerohourgroup.com. But this is our new website, which is, in my opinion, pretty slick. So,
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, this looks awesome. This looks better than some of the $500 million market cap companies. But yeah, all of our 0 Hour interviews here, we're gonna have these kind of earnings call reviews and things as well. And then there's also a section on here where you can contact us, if where I guess institutions can contact us for interviews and inquiries regarding our coverage. So I just thought this was something really cool that I thought we'd show you guys quick, and it's a starting point, but it's very exciting, and we're gonna do some really good things with it. So yeah, you can find us at the zerohourgroup.com if you have any questions, inquiries, things like that. But that will be where a lot of our other content, is posted. We'll post on Hidden Gems, we'll post on the 0 Hour Group, and we're just going to really be expanding these platforms. So yeah, I thought we'd show that quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you want, and who you want to see. We can use that to sort of leverage our efforts and help make it happen for sure.
Let's have another Green Day. That would be nice. I don't have, I don't know. I think we had a dead cat bounce. I think we're going down, but I guess everyone thinks that. So maybe we're going to go up. It's probably going to inverse whatever retail thinks. So we'll see. I'm hoping for a Green Day too, and I'm hoping to get my initial investment in takeoff for Volatus Aerospace here as well. Benny, I know you already are. You're armed to the gills. I'm working on getting my entry right now, though, so it's very exciting. I want exposure to this company, over the next year or so, and then in 2027 for sure. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I think this next year is just shaping up to be a really prime year for them to set up to break out. Get up over that dollar mark for sure. That's what I'd like to see by this time next year. And I'd be happy to keep on holding if I saw it. So, yeah, they're just positioned right, primed right, and I like the leadership. That's a big important thing for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the fact that none of them are selling their shares in the last 7 years, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I think maybe this weekend during the live stream, we'll have to ask and crowdfund some specific questions as well that people might want to hear. Because we're gonna have a host of our own questions, obviously, but we I want to what the people want. So for that interview, which I can't believe the video was pausing. I didn't even hear it. So I just
Yeah. Well, all of our guests probably heard it 3 times. So we
I'm like,
got the
"Okay, I gotta
message
get
out.
that's yeah, no, that's awesome. I was getting some news live there, but
Hey, I took the opportunity, just to let them know, sometimes there can be layers in an organization like that between the investor relations department and they get inundated. But I just shot a quick note saying we were we were sort of waiting in line for that opportunity, and I got a message back saying we'll get back to you on that. Thank you very much. So. Yeah, I even took a picture of it with the camera so, for our own
no,
scrapbook. Yep.
that's a good way
Yep.
to start the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, unless something comes up, we'll see everybody Sunday night, I hope. And yeah, have a great trading day. All right. Really appreciate everyone joining.
Yeah. Time to go trade some futures. So I'll see you guys later. And Benny, thanks for coming
Right on.
on, and I appreciate you, bringing Volatus into the scope. I mean, this is a company that's very exciting. There's a lot of similarities to Ondas a couple of years ago, and I mean, man, 50 cents. I mean, this thing in the future, I could see it, being a few dollars at least. So
Yeah.
we don't know, but it's exciting for sure. So yeah, this is definitely one that's going to be on the radar, and I'm excited that this is our second interview. And then we can, we have so many other drone companies to cover too. This one's very exciting, just with that defense spending budget.
I don't know. Maybe we can get on up to Quebec and see that Mirabel facility and knock out the interview, get both of those done at the same time.
I'm in Minnesota, pretty
All
close.
right.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
That's a quick flight for me. Yeah.
All right. We'll put that in the pot there and cook it a little bit and see what we come up with.
All right. That sounds good.
Right.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you coming by, and we'll get the recording out and updates on that interview and further interviews and whatnot coming soon. Bring questions Sunday night as well.
Absolutely. And let Brad know he can look at, you'll have this uploaded. He can check it out, put it in the AirPods and listen to it at work, wherever he's at, and find
Yep,
out.
we'll be getting, yeah. Hopefully we'll have the Spotify platform up soon, but otherwise it'll be on Substack and 0 Hour Group YouTube, and then our
Right
website as well soon. And yeah, I was going to say, Amy Super's question quick. It'd be funny if we had a 0 Hour Group summit where we brought all the drone company CEOs together. That'd be really impossible. Maybe eventually, who knows? Glenn.
Yeah, if we make 0 Hour big enough, they'll make it happen.
That is true.
Right?
You should just host our own drone conference. Honestly, it's going to be huge in the next 5 years, 10 years. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So all right, we'll see you next time.
Happy Sunday night.
Yep. Happy Wednesday, everyone.
See ya.